So we have an in-season trade. We're seeing more and more in-season trades happen over the years, and this is now Minkah Fitzpatrick getting traded to the Steelers for a first-round pick, and I find it very fascinating. I mean, for one thing, it's rare to see a guy who was just drafted with a first-round pick a year ago end up getting traded. I mean, that doesn't happen too often at all. If it does happen, usually it's because he's a bust, but clearly that's not the case with Fitzpatrick. He's a pretty good player. But of course, the reason why the Dolphins are trading him is just simply because they're kind of trying to rebuild right here. They're trying to get as many draft picks as possible, kind of going with the Oakland Raiders model in a sense. So for the Steelers, is it a good move? Well, first, let's just get into how good of a player he is, because I actually thought that he's actually kind of been one of the lone bright spots on that Miami Dolphins defense over these past couple of games. Like on this play, it's a cover 3 zone, and that's where he is on the screen, so he's in charge of covering the flat on the top half of the screen. This is actually a play that I broke down in my video about Antonio Brown that I just uploaded a couple of days ago, but basically the way it's going to work is Miami's going to try something different where they're going to drop their edge rushers back into coverage and then also blitz 2 linebackers. But I mean, after this ball is snapped, Antonio Brown, he's just going to get wide open on this play. But what I like about this play from Fitzpatrick is notice where he is. He's all the way up there, he's literally on the 50-yard marker right there. He's on the 50, the letters. Meanwhile, Brown is on the logo, so there's clearly some space in between those two guys. But watch how he's going to close that space pretty quickly and not allow Brown to gain any more yards really after that play. It wasn't his fault that ball was caught, but he was still able to make a tackle. Tackles can absolutely be a misleading stat a lot of times, because sometimes if you're a safety and you have a lot of tackles, it's simply just because you suck in coverage and you give up a lot of receptions, so therefore you have to make a lot of tackles. But that's not the case with Fitzpatrick. It's actually a little reminiscent of back when Rondé Barber was playing safety for the Bucs. Obviously, Rondé played corner for most of his career, but towards the end of his career, he transitioned to safety, and oftentimes in those teams, their defenses were just terrible, and so it really seemed like Rondé would just be constantly making tackles. He would just be making tackles all over the place, and that's kind of what Fitzpatrick has been like these couple of games for the Dolphins. I'm not saying he was as good as Rondé Barber was, I'm just saying that's kind of what it feels like a little bit watching the Dolphins play. Really, that's kind of one of the things I love about Fitzpatrick, is this guy is such a gamer that even in a blowout loss, both of these games have been blowout losses, he's still been giving his all and trying to keep them in it. Like, there's this play also where it's a cover 3 zone, and that's where he is on the screen, and he's in charge of covering the flat on the bottom half of the screen this time. So he has some distance to cover just to get to where he's supposed to cover. But also worth mentioning, if you look at the formation the Patriots are in, it appears as though they're going to be running the ball, and Fitzpatrick actually feels very strongly that they're going to be running the ball in this one. And so he's not going to abandon his assignment per se, but he's definitely going to be looking with a close eye to prepare for a run. Like, as you see right when this ball is snapped, Brady's handing the ball off, and Fitzpatrick, he's moving in now. The second he hands the ball off, Fitzpatrick is ready for a run, and he's going to move into the middle of the field, and kind of, now at this point, he can abandon his assignment because he knows it's going to be a run. So that's good heads-up football, and also football that a lot of guys wouldn't do. Some guys just say, I'll go to the bottom half of the screen, I don't want to have to make a tackle, especially since my team sucks. But that's not Fitzpatrick. He gives his all in every play. He's then going to run over to the middle of the field, and because the back was able to get through, he's the one that makes a tackle around the 50-yard line. I'll show one more of these plays, and the reason why I'm showing so many of these plays is because I do want to show that the fact that he racks up a lot of tackles is because he's good, not because he gives up a lot of catches. Like, what's going to happen here is it's going to be a cover 1 hole, and for New England, what they're going to do is they're going to have a tight end go out to block that Dolphin right there, but then he'll run a route up to the top half of the screen. That's the way this play is designed to work for New England. And so after this ball is snapped, Brady fakes the handoff, and his tight end's going to get wide open. Brady's able to hit him. They're able to gain some yards. Pretty simple. Nothing Fitzpatrick could have done on that play. Fitzpatrick was in charge of covering the middle of the field. There was no way he was going to get over there. In fact, he shouldn't be over there. If he got in the way of that play, he would have been out of position. He did the right thing on that one. But now again, that tight end is closer to the end zone than Fitzpatrick is, so a lot of guys would honestly kind of give up on this play, or maybe jog but not be, too enthusiastic in trying to make this tackle, but that's not Fitzpatrick. He runs over and he helps make that tackle. Again, that's kind of what I like about him, is he gives his all in every play. He's a good tackler, and he's a smart player too. He knows where he has to go. This guy had 6 combined tackles in each of his first 2 games, which means that he was on pace for 96 total tackles this season, which is definitely a ridiculously high number. And even if you want to say, well, that's just because he plays for the poor Dolphins team that doesn't make a lot of tackles, well, he still had 80 combined tackles in 2018, so it's not totally that way. You also have a play like this, where this is going to be a running play, and so that's where Fitzpatrick is on the screen. He's trying to make sure he stops the run and doesn't allow a touchdown on this play, and he's going to get blocked by a fullback here. And so after this ball is snapped, Fitzpatrick is going to say, well, now wait a second, I am not necessarily the biggest of guys. He's 6'1" and 207 pounds, which isn't actually a terrible height and weight for a defensive back, but when you're going up against a fullback, well then it becomes a lot worse. There is a 0% chance he can overpower him here. So what is he going to do? Well, he's just going to go low essentially, create a tripwire. Doing that helps clog up the lane and gives the back nowhere to go. So, Fitzpatrick, I'm not sure if he actually got credit for the tackle on that one, but he was the one who made the play. Something a lot of guys wouldn't do when they're the Dolphins going up against the Patriots, but you know what? That's what he likes to do. He's a guy who he's going to hustle. He's going to give his all in every game, no matter how big of a blowout it is. And now some of these plays, like that last play actually, was an example of a play that happened in the first quarter when the score was 0-0, but some of these plays weren't. I mean, I showed some plays when they were getting blown out. His hustle really is something I love to see out of a guy, especially a young guy. He hustles so much. He's not just concerned about getting paid. He wants to win. He wants to play. Like now I'll show some plays from Baltimore, and here's the way this one's going to work. It's going to be a run through the top half of the screen, and Fitzpatrick is actually pretty close to the bottom half of the screen. So you would think, well, he wouldn't have too much to do with this play. A lot of offenses wouldn't even have him be blocked on this one, but that is not what Baltimore is going to do. They're going to pay him some attention, and probably for a good reason. He's a good tackling safety. They want to make sure he doesn't get over and make the play. Baltimore, they want to get a touchdown on this play. So they're going to have their right tackle move out to try to block him. Nothing too crazy, but all he has to do is really get in Fitzpatrick's way, and now Fitzpatrick has been taken out of play. That's the way it's supposed to work for Baltimore. And after this ball is snapped, as you see, one thing you gotta like about Fitzpatrick is he realizes, hey, wait a second, I'm going up against the right tackle. I've gotta be faster than the right tackle, so I'm gonna run and try to get closer to the top half of the screen than that tackle is. So as you see, Baltimore's tackle does have a hand on Fitzpatrick, but just one hand, and it's not really in a situation where he could actually prevent Fitzpatrick from getting into this play. That's just good awareness of realizing there is a guy on me, so I have to make sure I get to the top half of the screen quick enough that he isn't able to block me out of this way. Because from that point on, Fitzpatrick can continue to run up to the top half of the screen and make this play and prevent a touchdown. I know that play still ended up being a pretty good play for Baltimore, but it would have been a touchdown without Fitzpatrick there. His whole job in that play was basically just try to prevent the touchdown. That's what he did, so good play from Fitzpatrick. He also had just some good heads-up plays in that first game against Baltimore. Like this one, he's playing man coverage, and he's playing man coverage against a tight end right here, who's going to go in motion to the top half of the screen, so of course Fitzpatrick follows him to the top half of the screen. And so Fitzpatrick does follow the tight end up to the top half of the screen. However, as he's focused on that, the ball is going to get snapped. So now he's kind of in an awkward situation. He's up at the top half of the screen, but now all of a sudden he's in the middle of the play, and it's going to be a run in his direction. So he has to go from playing coverage to now all of a sudden trying to make a tackle very quickly. But he's going to go over there, and he's not in a great position to make a tackle. You see him, it's not perfect form necessarily, but hey, you make the tackle, and that's all you have to do. It's hard to get your hands exactly where you want to be when all of a sudden you have a guy running right at you, but he was able to still find a way to make the tackle, so you gotta give him some credit for that one, in my opinion. I mean, that's just good heads-up football. Now, I do have to be honest, Fitzpatrick, he's not a perfect player. He just isn't. I mean, he definitely has some flaws in him. He's a young guy, and again, part of it is just being a 6'1", 207-pound safety. That is kind of a little bit on the smaller side. It's kind of a little bit on the smaller side. 6'1" is pretty good height, but he's just a little bit skinny, which is totally fine. That's kind of just the role he plays, and he still is a good tackler despite his height and weight. But I noticed Miami, they put him on tight ends a fair amount, largely just because Baltimore will like to run, basically 5 tight end sets. Okay, not really that much, but they like to run a lot of tight ends. And so Fitzpatrick was a guy who was in charge of covering tight ends, both against Baltimore and against New England, two teams that like to have a lot of tight ends, and New England also likes to have fullbacks in the games. So he ended up getting put on tight end or fullback duty a decent amount, and sometimes that can create some problems. Like as of right here, that's where he is. He's on the top half of the screen, it's clearly man coverage, and he's going to be going up against Mark Andrews. And so this is a 3rd down and 4 situation, so crucial for him to be able to make a stop right here, and for Andrews, he's going to be cutting right around that 1st down marker. This is a play that Baltimore likes. This is a play that Lamar Jackson is going to look to throw to. He is going to try to make this throw in that direction. And after this ball is snapped, if you notice, Andrews is able to cut in front of Fitzpatrick like that, and there's really not too much Fitzpatrick can do just because of the size difference. I mean, Andrews is, he's a tight end. He's obviously going to be a big guy. He's 6'5", 256 pounds. So when you have 4 inches and 50 pounds on a guy, the chances are in plays like this, if you get the inside leverage, it's over. Because now Lamar Jackson's able to hit him, and they're able to get the 1st down. So that's just kind of a size thing, and that's why ideally you don't love to have a safety against a tight end. It is beneficial in more deep routes, however, in kind of those short to medium range plays, when you do have quick cuts, it makes things a lot easier on a tight end going up against a safety as opposed to a linebacker who's much bigger. Of course, there is no 6'5", 250-pound safety. That doesn't make any sense. But basically what my point is that he had some struggles in those types of plays in his first couple of games. That's all. He still probably played better than your average safety would, but I'm just pointing it out. He's not a cure-all. He still does have his own weaknesses, as does every player. Is this a nitpick? Well, yeah, but I wanted to show something that was a negative, and that is a negative, albeit a small one. So yeah, that's kind of what I think about him as a player. Now the question becomes, should the Steelers have traded for him? And I kind of lean on yes. I think the only way I'll be really against it is if they wanted to go quarterback in the first round, but I don't think that's what they're going to want to do. At least at this point, they feel they won't want to do that. I mean, they trust Mason Rudolph, and also Ben Roethlisberger isn't dead. You know, yeah, he had a bad injury. He's going to be gone for the rest of the season, but he could come back next year. He definitely could. If Rudolph disappoints, you're not going to be without a quarterback, essentially. And sure, Pittsburgh's first-round pick could be pretty high next year, but you know what? If it's the 11th overall pick, well, that's the same pick that Fitzpatrick was drafted in. So I kind of like this move from Pittsburgh's perspective. From Miami's perspective, I mean, if he wanted to go, I don't think it's a bad move at all to get a high draft pick, potentially high draft pick at least, although I don't think the Steelers are dead in the water just yet. And they definitely could have used a safety, so this does make the Pittsburgh Steelers a better team. There's no doubt about that. I think it makes some sense. I mean, they're definitely better for 2019, and I do think it'll probably make them better in the future. The only exception would be if they really bottom out and only win like 2 games or something. But honestly, with the way the Jets and Dolphins are playing, I mean, it's a very real chance that they'll still end up, even if they do have a terrible season, end up with, at best, the 3rd overall pick. So they're not going to get like a 1st overall pick that way. And I honestly don't see them going 2-14. They'll win some games, in my opinion. But that's just what I think. Let me know in the comments below, and as always, thanks for watching.